girls, and to all the other viewers out there, a special warm welcome to Dryden, South Anna, and Great Neck Elementary Schools. Welcome to Safari Live. My name is Steve Folgenbridge. I'm joined on camera in the vehicle there by the most incredible man, Nsenzo Mkhize, who is about to show you three fingers, and we are out in the bush in what we call the Savannah biome. We are coming to you from South Africa, in Sabi Sands, South Africa, Greater Kruger National Park, where we have trees, we have grasses, and we are in a biome called the Savannah biome, which is made up of grasses, trees, and has a very similar sort of rainfall. I wonder what biome it is that you are in back at home. Please send through your questions and comments with your teacher. Let us know how things are going. Let us know what you'd like to know. I have found a branch on the ground, and you might wonder, what is this branch doing here? But this is evidence of the African elephant moving through. He would have broken the branch up. He's eaten off the end there of the bark, and then he's just discarded it on the side of the path as if it was nothing, but very important for the ecosystem. We're going to touch on a lot of that. So the savannah is made up of grasses and trees. I wonder where in the world you are and what your biome is. That'd be marvelous to hear. And I'm going to jump back in the car because I'm actually on a game drive safari this afternoon, where the temperatures are 28 degrees Celsius and 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Kai, you want to know how the environment plays a role in the food chain. Now, essentially what we're looking at, if I just stop here real quick and you have a little scan over the right here, please, Sens, you'll notice, boys and girls, that there's lots and lots of grass and lots of trees. And now what all of this is created from is the amount of nutrients in the soil, and is also determined by the rainfall. Now, the Savannah biome gets between 200 and about 800 millimeters of rain every single year, and that is what prevents it from becoming a forest. If it gets more than that, it'll probably become a forest, and also because it's a little bit drier and we're quite low down. We're only about 280 meters above sea level. If it was higher, we'd probably get frost and we get no snow. So because we don't get too much frost and we get no snow, we get this nice sort of mixture of trees and grasses, and this facilitates, sorry about my head, this facilitates the largest accumulations of mammals in the world. So the grass itself is the most important foodstuff out there. Mixed with the trees gives us the nice diversity, and all of these things growing and moving are producing food for abundance of wildlife, including birds. Now, we're out on drive this afternoon with someone else, so we're going to go say hello to my friend Taylor.
Hello everybody who's joined us on the schools today. My name is Taylor, as Steve said, and on camera with me is VM, and we have picked up a branch underneath a car, but I'm not going to get off of it. I'm going to simply do a safari maneuver, which is you drive over other vegetation to try and get the branch to unwheel itself from the car. Now remember, you can ask questions, so I look forward to chatting with you throughout the drive. Just make sure you get those questions through to your teachers. What we're going to be doing to start off with, there's a dam not too far away from here called Buffelshoek Dam, just east of us, and there are normally hippos there. I've seen some elephant tracks, which is what I've been following at the moment, but I've lost them. So I think they may have gone off the road and maybe to the closest watering hole, because it is going to be a very, very nice day. Now, Addison, we're very lucky here in South Africa, so it's not too hard for the animals to try and adapt to the different seasons. It doesn't get very cold in winter. Summers are quite hot, so the thing that they need to get used to the most is the heat. And the other thing is then in winter, we don't get any rain, so we just get a summer rainfall. So the problem for the animals is something that they also have to get used to is not having a lot of food. So all the grass tends to disappear, all the leaves, most of the trees lose their leaves, some of them keep their leaves, some of them are evergreen, and then you'll see things like reptiles. They don't hibernate like maybe you're used to back at home, but they estivate. So estivate means that they'll temporarily go off and hide away. There's a hornbill. It's not the greatest view, that there's a bird party going through here. Now, birds can adapt much easier than the mammal species because they've got wings, and if there are no insects around, it looks like that hornbill has got a tiny little insect in its beak that it's holding on to, but that leaf is in the way, and they can just fly. So So they can fly and move to another area where there's more food, whereas the mammals can do the same thing because this is an open ecosystem. So the animals have got over 8 million acres of land to move around on. It's huge. It's larger than a lot of countries in the world. So they can go wherever. So if we run out of food here, they can start moving. If there's water that dries up in this area, they might have to go and find other rivers and dams to drink from. So they just have to move around. So I suppose a lot of these animals are doing mini migrations. Yeah, gobbled it straight up. But at the moment, we're lucky. A lot of the trees still have fruit on. We're in autumn at the moment, going into winter. And we had some very late rain. So the grass is still nice and tall, still nice and green and delicious. And lots of fruit tends to come about in winter to try and compensate for the lack of leaves and grass. How clever of those trees. Right, there's one more person that you haven't met, and he's doing something really cool. He's on a bushwalk. His name is Ralph. Let's go and see what insects he'll find you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the afternoon bushwalk. We're out here in the Sabi sands on foot. You're watching Safari Live. My name is Ralph Kirsten, and on the camera with us, we've got Davy, and he's following me on the bushwalk. Now, remember all the kiddies that are watching at the schools, when we're out on the bushwalk, remember we're out here with the big five, that we could possibly bump into one of them. What are the big five? Well, they are the big five most dangerous animals to hunters. Now, we're not going to be hunting them to shoot them, we're hunting them to see them, to view them, and to retreat slowly. But those animals are the rhino, buffalo, the lion, the leopard, and the elephant. So we need to be a little bit careful when we're out here. We need to be a little bit quiet, and we need to walk silently through the bush. We need to have our ears open. We need to have our eyes open so that we can pick up the little signs that might give away the presence of one of these animals. So what we're going to do is we're going to start walking, and I want you to come with us because we haven't spotted any of these animals just yet. And the potential of us finding some is there, but we also want to be looking for all the little small things. Now, it's always very important that if you one day go out into Africa and you get to walk on foot with dangerous animals, you need to be with a qualified guide, such as myself, well experienced with these animals. And when we walk, we've got a couple of little hand signals that we might use, because you need to be absolutely silent as you walk. So if I'm walking, leading the group in single file, and I maybe hear something, maybe it's a branch break, I will just put my hand up like this, and everybody needs to stop. So the hand goes up, we need to stop, we need to look, we need to listen. All right, that's just the potential for something being there. But if I keep walking and I potentially spot an animal just near to us, I will put up a fist like this, and that would mean that everybody needs to freeze, because maybe there's an animal right next to us. So in that position, all you do is breathe. You don't even step over the stick that you were just about to. You freeze right there. And there's another hand signal that I use, and it's maybe like this. Maybe I've spotted an elephant just nearby to us, and I will go like this. That means that we all just go down, because we sometimes need to just lower ourselves. Maybe then we look a little bit less intimidating, and so the animal can calm down, and then maybe we can make a retreat. Look, sometimes we do get into animal spaces, but we want to view that animal in its natural habitat without it knowing that we're there, and we want to leave with the animal continuing on its natural way that it would have anyway. So those are the three signs. Hand up, just stop, fist, freeze, and just to go down. Now, Taylor, you want to know what is the most endangered species in Africa? Well, Taylor, at the moment, we've got a very big problem with rhinos being poached. So we don't potentially talk too much about rhino in the bush, because we don't want those nasty people that are coming out to Africa to hunt and kill and poach rhino, specifically for the rhino horn, which is absolutely useless, but that's the reason they're coming out to our wonderful continent to come and kill these animals. So that is the one that we're looking at that is possibly one of the most endangered. So everyone, we're going to continue up the walk here, see if we can find any tracks of these endangered animals. And while we look through the bush, let's head you on over to Steve, who I think is doing something exactly like that.
Yes, we are out in the largest schoolroom in the world, the Kruger National Park. It is the largest research facility on the planet. There's all sorts of scientific research going on here. And if you want to do research, you want to understand the environment, it's important to understand habitat. First of all, if you look around me, it's nice and open. This is the kind of area where you'll be finding wildebeest and zebra. They are grazing animals. They like to feed on the grass. And then, as Ralph has been telling you about the big five, two of the other animals in there, the white rhino would also like areas like this, as well as the buffalo. They like nice, juicy grass. So you need to maintain these areas for these different species. So I just picked up a few grasses because, you never know how many things you can learn out here in a day. But I just walked out and I grabbed just a couple. Now, you must understand, boys and girls, that when you want to identify grass, you can't just grab the grass like this with those leaves and think you're going to be able to identify it. You need to get the flowering parts, and this time of year is the best time of year if you want to understand and identify grasses. So just in this patch where we walked around, look at all of these. There's one. You see the beautiful, beautiful inflorescence or the flower called couch grass. There's another one. It's a beautiful grass called sawtooth love grass, and this one's got, the tastes quite good. This one doesn't taste that good. So from an animal point of view, not very valuable. We get this one over here. Very easy to identify. Finger grass. Looks like your hands. This one is very, very tasty. It's about 10 out of 10. So that is absolutely delicious. I'm going to keep that one for later. And this one is signal grass. You can see it's very, very different. It's about medium. There's another signal grass. Oopsie. Here's another love grass over here. It's called hairy love grass, and there's just little hairs over here on the base. Can you see that, Sense? Little hairs there. And another one, this is called three-awn grass. This is not a great grass. It's very important, known as a pioneer. It moves in, it covers exposed soil. So very important in the vegetation. But if you find lots of this, you can assume that your area's been overgrazed and there are too many animals. Okay, and then here we go. This is number one of all the grasses out here, called buffalo grass, or Panicum maximum is the scientific name. And because when you see a buffalo, you panic to the maximum because they are very scary and they like grass. Little purple little pods there, and you can actually eat these. It's quite tasty, in fact, and very good for the birds. The birds love that. And we've got a couple more grasses over here, but you can see just in a few minutes I walked in this space here and I got a huge diversity of grasses, and underneath there's insects and all the mammals above, and hopefully we're going to show you that. But going over to someone who's got a mammal who likes to eat lots of grass, Taylor and a hippo.
We've arrived at Buffelshoek Dam, the dam that I was telling you all about a little while ago, where there are a couple of hippopotamus just having an afternoon sleep, which is what they do really, really well at this time of the day. They don't exactly want to go anywhere. And most of you know, or if you don't, you're going to find out now, that hippos spend the majority of the day out in the water, which is quite cool. Don't you wish you could be a hippo? Imagine sitting on a lilo, just floating around all day long. Oh, now, Alex, you were asking who was stronger between a hippo and an elephant. I'm going to have to say an elephant. Out in the wildlife kingdom, size does matter. Sorry, I'm just killing flies as they try to fly into my face. Got one. And hippos don't quite weigh as much as elephants do. A big elephant bull can weigh well over 5 tons, whereas a really big hippo bull probably weighing just under 3 tons. Probably a little bit less than that. Maybe a really big one about 2.5 tons. So that's about the size of a small car. Maybe a bit bigger than a small car. Maybe a car with 4 seats and a trunk. Something like that. But they're really, really long. So even though hippos have got really, really big mouths and big teeth, that's what they use them for, fighting against one another and protecting themselves against predators, but they're not necessarily going to use them to fight an elephant. An elephant can push down entire trees hippos can only rub up against trees and maybe make them shake around a little bit. But otherwise, the elephant is going to win that match. They are the strongest of the land mammals. Now, Anna, another question from you asking whether hippos are endangered or not. They aren't. They are not endangered. There are plenty of them. Out here, there's not so many. We don't have any big river systems on the property. We've got some dry river beds. So the hippos out here have to live in the dams. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 dams on Djuma. The moment, Buffelshoek Dam, Treehouse Dam, and Twin Dams are the ones with the most water. Vuyatela Dam there isn't much left in it. Not enough that a hippo would want to go there, while there's other choices. And then on another property we can drive around on, called Chitwa, there's a huge area, and we'll probably get down there at some point. And there are huge pods of hippos. I think there must be about 30 or 40 hippos in that big dam. So you can see lots and lots of hippos. If you go into Zambia or even into Zimbabwe and you travel along the Great Zambezi River, I think the one day, I'm trying to sort of guess how many hippos, there were more than 50 hippos just in one pod. So that's what we call a group of hippos. Whereas this, that's very small, hey. I think there's one big territorial bull in here. There might be another younger bull that's not mating with the females. He's just sort of hanging around maybe for company. And then I think there's 2 females that are in this dam. But it's very hard to tell which is a male and female hippo while they're in the water. It's easier when they're out on land. Ooh. Now, Addison and Caden, you've asked, how long can a hippo hold its breath for? Let's play a game. How long do you think a hippo can hold its breath for? Quickly, all shout out answers. And let's see how quickly your teacher can type to get those answers through. Because they can hold their breaths for a fairly long time. I can promise you there's no one that works for Wild Earth, and there's definitely no one in the classroom that can hold their breaths for as long as a hippo. So I'll wait for your answers. Let's take some guesses and see who's right, and then you win bragging rights with all your friends. But these hippos are just going to go up and down in the water, and they do this by themselves. They aren't even trying. They aren't even telling themselves, okay, now I'm going to push off the bottom of the floor and come up and take a breath. That movement of going up and down is natural. They don't have to think about it, just like breathing. Now, as we look at these hippo bobbing up and down the water, there may be some crocodiles, and that's what Caleb was wondering, who would win if there were crocodiles here between hippos and those reptilians. I'm going to go with the hippo. Can you believe it, Caleb? And the reason why I say this is because hippos live in big groups. There is an unspoken rule between hippos and crocs. You leave me alone, I leave you alone. But one adult hippo bull versus one crocodile is going to be in a bit of trouble. Sometimes what happens is crocodiles, which is the apex predator out here in Africa. So you get the crocodile, and then you'll get lions, and then leopards and hyenas, and it goes on and on and on like that. Crocodiles will eat anything, and sometimes they can't help it, and they will try and snatch a young hippo calf, or perhaps they get too close to the pod of hippos. Maybe they're just moving past to go out to sunbathe on the banks, and if a bull is very protective over his herd, which they normally are, he's going to be very upset with them, with that crocodile. And there's some really cool pictures. Maybe your teacher can even try and Google crocodiles versus hippo, and you'll see how the hippos just open their mouths, and when they're all flustered and angry, they kind of sort of band together. They'll try to chase that crocodile away. I would not mess with a hippo. They are one of the most dangerous animals in Africa and kill more people than the big 5 put together. And that's just because if you're canoeing and you get too close, like if the crocodile got too close to the other hippos, he's going to attack you. He's going to tip you out of the canoe. And if he doesn't kill you, then the crocodiles might snatch you up. The other thing is, I'm going to block the sun from my face. The other thing is that hippos go out of the water to eat at night. They eat grass, and if you come in between the water, which is the hippo's safe haven, and the hippo itself, it's going to charge over you and can kill you that way too. So in areas where people still use the rivers to drink or to wash their clothes or wash pots and pans and things like that, they're most vulnerable. So they're very, very dangerous animals. Not that they want to eat you. Now, I asked you earlier to see if you could guess about how long a hippo can hold its breath for. And Caleb, you guessed 10 minutes. Well done, you're close. Not quite that long, but they can hold their breath for roughly about 6 minutes or so. Maybe a little bit longer. I've never ever timed a hippo before. Maybe one day that'll be a challenge. So that's a long time, hey? It's amazing that they can hold their breaths for that long. I wish I could. I would do so much swimming around. It'd be a lot easier to scare people, hey, when you're swimming in the swimming pool. And normally when you play the Jaws game and you try and hold your breath and swim underwater and grab people's legs, you have to come up for air, and then they spot you and then they know you're there. So that doesn't really work. But these hippos aren't really doing much. I think we're going to try find a leopard, and then we're going to try and go to Chitwa. So we'll have a quick look and see if we can find more animals at that day. And there should be lots of birds and things too. Right, I'm going to send you to Steve now to see what he's found.
I would also like to find a leopard, but what we have found is some activity of a large Big Five animal. I don't know if you can see the tracks coming along the road here. There's a few sort of small circles over here. There's a herd of elephant came walking down the road. It's not very clear now because this is the road and people have been driving. But yes, I am about to pick up some animal poop. Ooh, I'm going to put it back because what we have underneath is a whole termite colony that's moving in there. I'm just going to grab a piece of this elephant dung and I'm going to take it back. But it's only a couple days old. How I can tell that is because it's still very wet inside. Can you see how wet it is inside? It's only dried around the outside, and it's easily identified as elephant dung because of big, let me just put that down, because of big bark and sticks like that. Rhino dung only has grass, so you'd only find grass material. But the elephants in our summer months, which we're coming out of now, we're going into winter, feed almost exclusively on grass in the wet months because there's lots of grass around. And as it gets drier, they start feeding more on sticks and bark and vegetation because there's lots of minerals and nutrients in the trees and in the bark. So, Patrick, a big male elephant, you want to know how much they can eat? They can eat about 300 kilograms. So that is about, what's that? Close to 600 pounds of wet matter a day. I say wet because if we had to grab it and weigh it, it's difficult to work out the wet because a lot of weight is lost in the moisture. So with 300 kilograms of wet, about 600 pounds. That's a lot, eh? That's a lot. And this is just one of those balls. And if I dig in here, there's a little berry over there. I don't know if you can see that. Little berry. And all sorts of other weird and wonderful bits and pieces. Don't know what that is. But with the microscope, we'd be able to see all the different leaf components and bark, some more berries, more seeds. But I'm going to put that back because it's very important to keep the ecosystem alive. Brett, you want to know how many elephants usually travel together in a herd? Now that I've put that back together, it's going to decompose back into the soil. It really depends. I mean, elephant bulls will walk around on their own like I am right now, just kind of meandering. You might find in them groups of 15, 20 sometimes, but quite often small groups of males, or they're solitary, whereas females can occur in groups of 10, 15, 20, 30. But as they start getting bigger, it's not actually the same herd anymore. It's probably cousins or sisters related, but when you divide them up, they'll be in small family groups of maybe 5 to 15. It really depends on the area, depends on the food resource. Certain times of year you get 200-300 elephants together, which is amazing. It's amazing. So I think I'm going over to Ralph, who's found us a tree. I think that's what's happening, so let's go see what he's doing.
Yes, and everyone, this is one of the most amazing trees that we do have out here in the bush. Now, this is a knobthorn, and it's used by a lot of different animals, but I'm going to get to that in a second. First, like I was doing a little bit earlier, I just want to explain to you a couple of little techniques that we use when we're out in the bush. Darby's got a pair of them on, but I also just want to show you these funny things that I've got on my legs. They're not just to make me look weird or strange. What they're doing is they're actually protecting my shoes from these nasty little seeds that we get out here. Now, they're all in flower at the moment, and I'll just pick off a couple there, and those go into your socks like little spears, and they really irritate you if you don't have something protecting your socks. So that's why we wear these things called gaiters. I'm sure out in America you guys use gaiters, but mostly to stop the snow from going in your shoes. Well, we don't have much snow out here, little to nothing. Sometimes on a very weird winter or summer's day we do have a little bit of a sprinkling, but generally we use it to stop these seeds going in our socks and irritating us, especially if we're out there for a very long time. Now, there's something else special about where I am here. Here's a nice dead log, but seems like it's pretty useless, doesn't it? It's probably fallen off of this tree, or it's another tree that's been pushed over, but all over it are these strange looking things here. Now, have a look at those. What would you say those are? They look like aliens or possibly squirrel skulls. They could be any of those, but in fact, those are the seeds of the marula. The magic marula, and what this tree has been forming is a lovely spot for the baboons to get their fruit and come and sit here on a nice little point and be able to look out over the little bit of bush that we have here and eat their lunch. So that's what they've been doing. Now, I'm going to go around Davy and I'm going to show you something else on this wonderful tree that we have. This is called a knobthorn. It's called that because when it's young, it's got a lot of very big knob-like structures on the trunk, which helps to protect it. At the moment, it's so big that it's lost most of those knobs, but it's got lots of thorns to protect it from mostly giraffe, who like to eat on the leaves. And this is one of their favorite trees to feed on, and those thorns then help to protect it from the feeding giraffe. But have a look here. We've got a big hole in the tree, a little bit of a dig out. Now, I wonder if any of you know what that has been done by. It looks like it's been grabbed out. And this has actually been done by an elephant. What an elephant will do is he'll push his tusk into the side of the tree and pull back this bark. Because on this inner layer there, it's called the inner cambium layer of the tree. That's where a lot of the transport processes of the tree, it's transporting water and nutrients up and down the tree to the leaves from the roots. And the elephant is going for that, especially in winter when there's very little food around. All the trees have lost their leaves and they get in here to get the inner bark. Now, Taylor, you were wondering if any animals eat the bark of the trees. Well, there's an exact example. Not all of them just live in trees. They also do eat them, especially elephants. So they'll push their tusk in here, get to that inner bark, which is very nutritious, and so they like to get in there. Elephants will also push these trees over when they're in flower, because they've got very sweet white flowers on this tree, and so the elephant will push the entire tree over just to get to those lovely sweet flowers. Now, we think that that's very destructive, but look what it does for the other animals. It makes nice little perching spots. The birds can make their little nests inside there, and there's also lovely space for all little kinds of insects to make their entire life inside that tree that has been pushed down. So it's very important that elephants go through, push trees down, break open things like that, because it's very important. Now, Emily, you're wondering how animals adapt to less food and water in winter. Well, Emily, they change their habits. Like the elephants, in summer, when we've got a lot of greenery around us like this, a lot of leaves and grass and new shoots, lots of nutritious vegetation available, they'll just be feeding on that. But when it comes time to winter, they need to be more specialized. So they'll start to feed on very nutritious bark, such as on the knobthorn. They also push down such as the velvet-leafed corkwood to get to the very nutritious roots. Elephants are very clever in the way that they access a lot of vegetation that has got secret, hidden nutritious elements within the plant, but in certain places of the plant, like the flowers in the knobthorn, like the inner bark, like the roots. They'll go for those specific different things. So they need to change and they need to specialize when the resources become less. When you have animals like the lions, they start to go down with the resources. There's maybe less animals around. They move off. The lions need to stay in the same territory, so they don't move off. What happens with them? They start to fight with other territorial lions within the area. So it can be more difficult for predators that are territorial, and in fact any animals that are territorial, because they can't move like the migrating animals that don't hold territories. It's not as easy for them to move off and to go find resources as easily as animals like elephants and giraffe. So this food source right here, it's a wonderful, wonderful tree. But that's our knobthorn. I'm not going to climb up there because it's full of thorns, but maybe I'll find another tree to climb up. And while I'm doing that, let's head you on over to Taylor, who I think is on the move.
We're on the move, making our way towards the Chitwa Dam, which is down there. But it's still a little way away. Now, we're having a look for some leopard tracks that were supposedly seen earlier today on the sunrise safari, but I can't find them. I don't know where they are, so I'm looking. But that's probably because there were lots and lots of other people on safari. Maybe they drove over them, and now I just can't see them anymore. And speaking of tracking, Addison would like to know this afternoon, how do you recognize the different tracks? Let me see if I can find some clear ones. See, this is a difficult road because a lot of people have driven here, and I can't really see the footprints very nicely. So if we do find some, I'll try and show you. It's easier to explain that way, but we'll chat about it now. So you basically have to learn. So you have a book with the tracks in them, or you go with somebody who knows what the different tracks are. You can do that as well. And then you just take it from there. And then practice. Practice is a big thing, because when I went to Kenya for a little while, we didn't do any tracking. We were basically in the cars. We weren't allowed to walk around there. And I completely forgot. By the time I'd come back to South Africa, I needed to basically open a new book and relearn some of the tracks again, because I couldn't remember. With all the different antelope species out here, it can get quite tricky, especially if you're not used to it. But because most of us have been guiding for a couple of years, it's fairly easy now to identify the tracks, because we know which animals occur in this area. So if you know the different types of mammal species and bird species that live in this area, and then you've learned their tracks, then you can kind of work it out quite, fairly easy. But if I were to go to an area that I'd never been before, so say I had to go to Namibia, I wouldn't really know what animals occur there. I know some of the animals that occur there, but I'd have to learn. So if I went out to try and do a bit of tracking, I might struggle a little bit and find some footprints that I've maybe never seen before. So it's quite a difficult one, but you get used to it. The tracking is the easiest part, I always say. It's something else which is called trailing. Now, trailing is when you follow the animal's footprints or some sign of it, whether it's grass bending over because they've walked through there, and then trying to find the animal. That's the hardest part. Right, but Steve has actually got one of the most common antelope in Africa, the impala.
Yes, we have finally found an animal for you boys and girls. It's taken some time, but at this time of year with the greenery all over the place, it is making it quite difficult. But here is indeed, as Taylor says, the most common antelope we find in the lowveld or in the savanna biome. It is called the impala. And this is a bunch of boys. You can see all of them except for one were born, by the shape of their horns, you can tell that they're just over a year old. They were born in November of the year before last. And what's happening is the males are coming into what we call the rutting season, the mating season, where they're starting to get ready to mate, defend small territories for the purpose of mating with the females, of course. And so these young males get pushed away because they're obviously not welcome, and they have to go off and fend for themselves. So they are hanging out in a small group of boys so as to protect themselves. Robert, you want to know what happens if an animal accidentally eats a poisonous plant? Well, depending on the animal, they will probably die. A lot of animals have developed immunity to certain poisonous plants, like porcupines and certain sort of mole rats, which are underground sort of critters. And they are quite generally okay when it comes to poisonous stuff. They've evolved to eat them. But elephants, for example, out here, they teach their youngsters how to eat. And so the youngsters don't feed on poisonous plants, but it is very likely that an impala or some other animal that might just be moving along could munch on something poisonous, and it could lead to their death, or could just lead to them being very, very sick. But this young group of males, they're starting to get a bit spooky because the wind is blowing. Onan, how fast can they run, you want to know? Wow. Well, I reckon they can get up to about 80, 90 miles an hour, I'm guessing, but that is a guess off the top of my head right now. I've never measured the speed of an impala, but they are incredibly fast. With their long, straight legs, they can cover an enormous distance. But aren't they beautiful? Look at that color. Okay, so we're going to move on from here. We're about to be joined by a few vehicles. So before they jump into our shot, let's move off. Good afternoon. Bradley, you want to know if antelope will fight each other for space? These are just some vehicles that work in and around the lodge. They're moving staff around, or they're bringing staff in, I'm not sure. Will they fight each other for space? Well, these antelope, not really. But when they become mature and they are breeding, they are demarcating a small area with regards to resources for food and water. But it's only in the dry season, or in the rutting season, which is coming about very soon. Wildebeest will keep an area all year round, and a lot of the other animals don't demarcate areas. They basically just defend groups of females as they move around. So another vehicle just moving past there. So I hope that answers your question, Bradley. We'll get another quick look at this, the adult impala here. There is the adult. He is in prime condition, not liking the sound of the vehicle. So we're going to drive off, and while we do that, let's go back over to Ralph, who is still walking in the bush.
Yes, everyone. So something else that I also want to tell you about. When we're out in the bush, we've got to keep our wits about us, but, you know, you can very easily get lost out here. It very often just all starts to look the same. We've got a lot of thick bush, and it's very flat. So what happens? You walk out of camp, and you walk for 2 hours. What happens? You turn around and, oh, where are we? Okay, so what would you do? How do you find north? If you're standing out here, you don't have a compass, you don't have a smartphone with you, you don't have a GPS. What do? How do you find north? Okay, so one of the things that we're obviously going to do, we're going to look at the sun. Where is the sun? Where did it come up? Where is it going down? Now, we know at this time of the day, it's a little bit late in the day, so the sun is starting to go down, and it's generally in a westerly direction. So obviously then west, east would be in the opposite direction. But an easy way to find north, we look at the sun right now, and you can try this at home. You look at the sun, okay, and you find the time. Now, on my watch, I've got a digital watch, but it's still telling me the time. It's 4 o'clock. All right? Now, we look at the sun, which is up there. So it's 4 o'clock. Now, what I'm going to do here, if Davy can just back up a little bit, I'm going to draw a nice big circle, and this is going to be my clock. Okay, we just clear this up a little bit here. This is going to be my clock. Okay? So, what we do to find north, we always point your clock at the 12 towards the sun. So there's your 12. You put it nice and straight up towards the sun, and that's going to be the long arm of your watch. Now, we know that it's 4 o'clock. So 3 o'clock would be straight on the side there, and 4 o'clock would be about there. Okay? Now, to find north, all we do is, that's the long arm of your watch, that's the short arm of your watch. Remember, the long arm of your watch pointing towards the sun, and right in the middle is where north is. So, north is over there. Okay, try that at home. Very nice, huh? So, we are not going to be getting lost, and we often say that we are not lost. How can you be lost? You know where you are. You're in Africa. You're in the Kruger National Park. You're just merely temporarily disorientated. But we're not disorientated. We know where we are. And let's send you on over to Taylor and see if she knows where she is.
Most of the time I have absolutely no idea where I am, but today I do. I'm on Cheetah Cut Line. Right. And what I have got for you is not anything to do with direction, but I can tell you which direction the tracks are moving in. But we were talking about tracks, and if you look very carefully over here, you can also see I can't draw a circle very straight, which means I'm not insane. But we have some lion tracks. So we'll look at this one because this is the neater one. 1, 2, that's not the toes. Sorry. This is the back of the foot over here. So you know when your cat goes walking around and leaves a paw print, that's the back of the paw, and here are the toes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there are 2 footprints here. There were 3 male lions that walked down this road this morning. So they're quite big. Look how big they are in comparison to my hands. But they're not fully grown just yet. They're still quite young. So their footprints are going to get a little bit bigger than this. They're going to grow a little bit larger, especially as they get a little bit heavier. And we're going in the right direction to find these lions because they look like they're going towards Chitwa Dam. How exciting, hey? Right, back in we get. Right, roll back down. Now, as we just looking at lions, there's a question for Emma about whether most animals hunt in groups. Let's think about that. So, the social hunters that we've got here, the smallest carnivore, a dwarf mongoose, really cute. We'll see, we might find some scurrying along the road. They live in family groups, they live in colonies, but they're typically foraging, so they're going after smaller things like insects and scorpions, millipedes. Sometimes they'll go for snakes, and maybe if it's a snake of sorts, they might need more than one of them, so they could potentially hunt in a group. Then let's look at jackals, which is like a fox. Jackals don't hunt in groups. They normally hunt on their own or in pairs because they sort of mate for life. So they find a mate and they try and stay with one another for as long as possible. Then we go to jump to the bigger ones. Cheetah, female cheetah live by themselves, and the male cheetahs can live in coalitions, so they can live in groups with one another, so then they will hunt together. For instance, the largest group of male cheetah ever recorded is in Kenya, and they're called the Fast Five. There are 5 of them. I was lucky to see them, and they were really, really good at bringing prey down because they had to work together. Then let's go to wild dogs, or African painted dog, as they're sometimes also called. They hunt in packs. They're very, very successful, but that's also because of their hunting strategy. Leopards are solitary hunters, so both male and female leopards will hunt on their own. And then lions, the most social of all the big cats, hunt in prides. All the females stick together, the males come and go, and the males will also hunt, and they will hunt with the prides too. So I would say the most successful animals are the ones that hunt in groups, got a better chance, whereas if it's just you on your own, you only have one chance. So it depends. The smaller cat species like African wildcat, serval, caracal, they're also all hunting all on their own, which is pretty cool. But the most successful hunters out here are indeed the wild dogs. Now, Faye and Addison, a great question. We'll see if we can find another lion track to go with your question. And it's about how can you tell gender from a track. So I'm going to find a nice big lion track. I think that one over there, Vim's probably the best one. Let me show you quickly. Oh, I'm removing my booster blankets. Okay, so with lion tracks, it's actually quite easy, but sometimes I've been confused when I first started out, because you can get some really big lionesses. But a male lion's tracks, and let's take a closer look. You can see they're as wide as they are long, so it's a very square track, whereas a lioness's track will not be as wide. It's a little bit narrower, and it's longer than the track is wide. So imagine big male lions, that big mane, lots and lots of power, and their front legs, so they make a very sort of squashed track in comparison sort of to the females. But you can't tell, it can be quite difficult to tell the gender on each track, but with lions it's quite easy. But again, you just learn it as you go along. Okay, right. In we get again. So that's quite cool. Now, sometimes most of the time the male tracks are bigger than the female tracks, but then you get the hyenas. That is the exception to the rule. But I hope you all enjoyed the school drive with us, and I hope you learned a little bit, and continue to watch Safari Live. Remember to always do all your homework and listen to your teachers, and don't be too naughty at home. But we'll see all of you next time. From us at Wild Earth, thank you very much. And now I'm going to send you across to, I'm not sure who, but what will be one of the boys.
Well, one of the boys it is. And everybody, we're doing one of the favorite things, the favorite pastimes that I absolutely love doing. It is, in fact, the oldest form of science. Now, why I say that is because tracking is, in fact, the art of taking up a theory and proving it. Now, that is pretty much what a science is, and the Bushmen have been doing it for hundreds of thousands of years. They have been looking at something on the ground and saying that that animal exists, and following it and proving it. And the exact animal that they saw when they looked at the track, they went off and they proved exactly their theory. Now, the theory that I want to show you, and I don't know if we will be able to prove it or not, but I know this track very well. Now, we're looking at these 4 little dots here, and as we go back, we're looking at those 4 dots there, and then we continue along, and we see another 4 there, and then we start to move further on. Now, remember that this sand is very soft, so that particular track is a little bit obscure, but if we continue along, we can actually get a little bit closer on, and we can see just here is in fact where this track began. It didn't start exactly here, but this is where the sort of little sequence that we have here, and it's nice and clear. This is some feet there. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4 toes. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4 toes over there, with a little bit of a back pad and a back pad over there. And similar over there, that one's a bit obscure. This one we can see those toes over there, but these are the back toes, the back feet, and these are the front feet. And this animal was moving in that direction. Now, it looks like a very small animal, but look how big the stride is. Okay? He's jumped from there to there to there. Now, that's quite a big jump. What little animals do we think can do that? Now, my trusty wingman here, he thought that it might be a mongoose. Now, mongoose will do something like this, especially when they're running at full tilt, but the track says to me that it's not a mongoose. And the reason for that is a mongoose has got a very lopsided back pad. And he does have a slightly different gait. So this particular little animal is the one that makes quite a lot of noise when there's leopards around, and he does a alarm call. What is it? It is our common tree squirrel. So lovely little track as he's been bounding up the road, and I love tracking. Hopefully we can prove that theory, but I know this track so well that I know I'm right. So that's it. All right, let's continue up the road and see if we can find any other tracks to prove. Ooh, now a scrub here, which is what a lot of people track was, slightly different, and that it's a little bit bigger. It does have a very close knit look to that of a jackal in terms of the track itself, but they weren't bound like this, and it's a lot bigger. You often see the hairs on the outside of the track as well, and well, let's see if we can find a hair track and then we'll compare. Let's go. We don't normally walk along the road, but it is ideal for tracking. So we're going to continue up the road, see if we can find some of those hair tracks. And I do search for perfect tracks. Let's head you on over to Steve, who I believe is on the move as well.
We are on the move indeed, thanks Ralph. Not much to report. We found tracks of buffalo and elephants, but they all seem to have crossed south and north and south in that order. Buffalo as well as the elephant. Buffalo going that way, elephant going that way. So nothing to report. We have found ourselves another herd of impala with a warthog with some birds on its back. What birds are those, Senzo? I'm sure all the viewers back home are quite well adept at identifying the birds on the back of our warthog now. And indeed you would be correct if you thought they were the red-billed oxpeckers enjoying the multitudes of ticks that are accumulated on the warthog as it walks through these long grasses. Can you imagine walking through these grasses that completely cover your head? I mean, I get enough tick bites just on my legs, and I'm only about knee-deep in the grass. And the warthogs don't have the ability to scratch them off very, very well. We've seen this female before in this open clearing. She's got an enormous set of tusks. You can see she's got some mammary glands visible there, but an enormous set of tusks. And I've seen her here on more than one occasion in this open clearing around Sandy Patch in our western side. By a herd of impala, and so they would give her the early warning signal needed if an animal like the Shidulu female, which is the one I'm looking for at the moment on the west. I know she is in the west, and it's possible she might be crossing back. Who knows? She might be here already. I haven't found any tracks yet. Maybe we'll listen out for the impala alarm calling. Always listening for the birds and the impala alarms. So how is everybody else doing this wonderful afternoon or morning, wherever in the world you are coming from? Don't forget to send through your questions at #SafariLive or send them through on the YouTube stream. Oh, fantastic, Sens. We've got a nice bird just here. Oh, fantastic, Sens. We've got a nice bird just here under this bush. Can you see him? Oh, look at that, straight to him. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's a beautiful bird for you. Please send through your comments. Tell me what bird that is. Standing very still in the open clearing. There's a bird I've seen in the Sabi Sands quite regularly, but I think it's regarded as a special because it doesn't occur in too many other places that I'm aware of. I mean, I've seen it here and in northern Kruger, but other than that, I've never seen it before. There's a ground nesting bird that likes to obviously move along the ground and feed on all sorts of insects. Those nice long legs. It's a perfect habitat for them in the open. Got one of its relatives a little bit more to the right over there. Ravinda, a new bird for you. Well, see if you can relate it to this one. It is related to this guy, but it's not the same species. You've definitely seen these before. Well, I hope you have, Ravinda. Definitely a more common of the two. They do. Joy, you are 100% correct. 100% correct with your answer. I've got my bird book here somewhere. My phone is not playing games with me. And there is the crowned lapwing. And the other one is the Senegal lapwing. For those of you who got it right, a round of applause to you. Let's see if I can quickly find them in my book. But I think we got quite a good look at it there. So they share quite a similar sort of resource. You can see them moving through the long grass here, feeding on insects. Golfer's nightmare they are, the crowned lapwing. You get dive bombed on the golf greens and golf courses of the Highveld. I wonder if James has ever been dive bombed before by one of these. There's documents, there's footage of elephants being moved away from pathways that they're walking on, because obviously the camouflaged eggs of these birds on the ground are in quite risk of being trampled by a giant African elephant. And I've never seen it personally myself, but I've seen elephants moved away from the path in some footage I saw years ago. And here we have the lapwing family. And there is the Senegal lapwing up there. You could quite easily see the very yellow eye in the footage and that little ring around it with that little white forecrown on the front of the head there. Quite different, in fact, from the crowned lapwing with its very orange legs and that beautiful crown on top. But they do sound quite similar. When you hear this one fly off, you almost can think, oh, I've known that before. And then you'll easily identify the Senegal lapwing. Okay, so you can actually look at the distribution here, Sens, if you don't mind. There you get them. There goes the southern white-crowned shrike. There you get the distribution. So it just crawls into the east of the country, whereas the crowned lapwing covers pretty much the entire area apart from the deserts of Namibia and the highlands of Lesotho. Okay, well, let's go over to Ralph. We're going to move on from here and let's see how his walk is progressing.
I have magically changed into Ralph. I don't have glasses to put on now. So funny. Obviously there was a mistake there. We do that all the time. And sometimes it's really hard to try and remember what the directors have just said to us. I promise you, while you're trying to talk, it's a serious talent that you must learn. That's very pretty, actually. Now, VM and I have been talking about all sorts of wonderful things. Wouldn't you like to drive down that road in between the Impala, looking at the beautiful blue sky and also the wonderful clouds? Isn't that nice? You always get the greatest view of Impala here at Chitwa. We're now on the airstrip, and we'll have to check left and right before we take off, eh, Captain Dr. VM? Safety first, says Captain Dr. VM. That's correct. Now, it's lovely. Hello, one Nyala trying to fool us all. It had me fooled for a minute. I actually thought there were only Impala here. But alas, a young male. No, there's a whole family there. My bad, I didn't even see them. Sneaky when they walk straight on like this. 1, 2, 3 girls, 4 girls, and 2 young males. But perhaps more of the Impala will turn into Inyala as they walk past. What, do they touch them and then they go poof and become a new species? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not. Just marching on down the road. And the airstrip is a great spot to come and graze. They often mow the airstrip, so they cut the grass on either side. As you can imagine, you want to be able to see if there's anything laying down there. You need to keep the airstrip as clear as possible. But this, of course, makes for great grazing because the grass is constantly being utilized. And it's growing quite nicely. Oh, someone got a headbutt. So the reason why everything is still so green when it should be changing color, Mac, is because, yes, we have had a lot of rain. We had some late rain, which has been welcomed with open arms. We have not had proper rain since 2014. 2015 was a really terrible year. It was a peak of the drought. It improved slightly, but just a smidgen in 2016. 2017 wasn't much better. We didn't get really any rain at all. And then 2018, well, the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, has been the year. I don't know if we've received the maximum amount of rain, but it was staggered just enough that we got some really late rain. The animals will be quite happy as we head on into winter, which will arrive shortly. Well, it's lovely. All animals are looking fat and healthy, which is also really nice. And everybody's just taking it easy on this Monday afternoon. It does look like a bit of traffic, eh? The way that they're moving. It does remind you of that 5 p.m. afternoon traffic. Getting stuck, having to stop every now and then. Here's a hard question. Paula, I haven't got a clue as to how many impala are here on Djuma. I would say in the Sabi sand there will be a couple of thousand at least. Impala populations are incredible. I don't know what the last count of the amount of impala for the Sabi sand is, or for the Greater Kruger National Park. But I'd imagine they're well over in the Greater Kruger, so this included, there'll be well over a couple of, at least 200,000 impala maybe? Maybe not quite that much, but a lot of them. There's so many. It wouldn't surprise me if they're the most abundant of all the species. They're everywhere you look. And when you get into Kruger, like you go down to the southern sections of Kruger, you see huge herds. Oh, why are you running? I don't know if they've responded maybe to that squirrel that just sort of started going chee 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 chee. I mean, they're not terrified. They're not really looking back behind them. And that's where they've run from. I think they just got a fright. And then, rather than wait for the threat to come to you, they thought they'd just run away from it. There's even a waterbuck on the other side of the airstrip that's just come trotting up from the opposite direction. What startled you, madam? Tail swishing, though. There you go. Beautiful striding, don't you think? Flicking their toes quite nice. You'd make a great show pony. But you're not a pony, you're an antelope. So you won't be able to be used. There she goes. She's now going in the direction where the impala have just run from. She's not scared. That's also where the squirrel... It's still alarming. Let's go see what the squirrel's shouting at. Big storytellers, as we know, so we will just have a little look. Please don't land any aeroplanes. Ow. My favorite part. To rev the engine. Hello. I can still hear the squirrel shouting. There's Captain Dr. VM. You can see his shadow. How many fingers am I holding up? You can't even see. I could be holding all of them up. Okay. I suppose we've got animals here. No, everybody's very relaxed. The squirrel's still shouting, but that thing could be shouting for, I don't know, there could have been a buffalo that landed, not a buffalo, I mean to say a butterfly that landed too close to us, trying to be funny, but that failed. That was an absolute fail. Anyways, we'll go and figure out why that squirrel is shouting at. Perhaps it's a bird, maybe it's a snake, maybe it's an aeroplane, who knows. It's good as Steve, he's on a bumble.
We are bumbling, and Senzo Mkize, Eagle Eyes himself, has just spotted, as you all know, one of the prettiest birds found in the savannah. The national bird of Botswana. Off he goes. No calls at all. No calls from the prettiest bird. We didn't hear the chimpanzee-like call that he often plays. So, sorry about that. Lilac-breasted roller, for those of you who were not sure. He was a very common bird. Sounds like a chimpanzee when it calls, though, so it's not very pretty. Mike, yes, birds can get ticks, but birds generally get what we call soft ticks. Most of the ticks we talk about are hard ticks, these ones that we get with a bit of hard exoskeleton, and soft ticks are ones that they'll find in nests and things like that, and in bird plumage. They'll definitely get fleas and types of lice, and it's that reason why they don't groom in their nest. They'll often groom away from where they roost, so that obviously everything that they drop on the ground doesn't come and land back in where they are trying to do their thing. Look at that, fork-tailed drongo on the ground. Can you see him, Senzi? Not for long, though. Not often you see these guys on the ground. I saw the other day one was jumping around in some elephant dung that a hornbill had broken up and mixed and mashed, and he came down and was picking up on whatever little flies or insects were moving around. So yes, they can get ticks. I've never seen a tick on a bird, to be honest, but like I said, there'll be more ticks which then actually breed and live in the nests of birds and other types of burrows. They're not really adapted to being out here in the environment. They need to be enclosed. I hope that answers your question. Okay, well, we are moving along steadily and Ralph is getting high. Let's go see exactly what he's up to.
Oh my goodness, sorry everyone. Crash Cut, live, we're here. Sorry about that, but we do have something amazing for you, a creature that we've not seen for a very long time. A giraffe. It was over there where we were framed up, but it has now walked, as you can clearly see, as do animals do when they want to move around. I don't know why that hardy-dar needs to shout so loudly. It's a bit unacceptable. We can't see it. It's hiding in the trees. Anyways, this is a female southern giraffe. What are you doing all on your own? Although, I suppose we shouldn't be too shocked because of their wonderful social structure. They're not exactly the most social creatures, well, with one another. They get along sometimes, and then they go and do their own thing, and then they're with a herd. I suppose it's not unusual. She does look rather fat as well. Maybe there's a little giraffe developing inside. Just from the side, it would be easier if she turned and faced us. We could see the big bulge a lot easier. But it does look like a fairly large gut that she's got on her. Trying to see if her mammary glands look a little bit so not too bad. You can see them just in there. Right, I know you're all super excited to see the giraffe. Even VM and I are, because it has been quite some time since we've last seen them. It's a pity. That's one thing I definitely miss about the Mara and the Maasai giraffe, was that the sightings of them were not few and far between like the southern giraffe. At the moment, they were everywhere. We could almost bank on seeing a giraffe every single day in the Mara, which was really, really quite nice. I bet you miss seeing the Maasai giraffe too, although their pattern didn't look too much different to the southern giraffe in my opinion. Hello oxpeckers, of course, typical. Always, most of the time you see oxpeckers on giraffe. I think I've seen more oxpeckers on giraffe than I have on impala. But then I've probably seen more oxpeckers on buffalo than I have giraffe. A little random observation there. And I'm trying to figure out what tree she's eating. It looks like one of the bush willows. Is it one of the bush willows? I can't even tell from here. Okay. Alright. I think Ralph has managed to sort out his audio gremlins now, and he might be trying to look at a giraffe eye to eye. Let's go and see why he's in a tree.
Well, everyone, as I was saying before we very rudely had gremlins interrupt the conversation, what I was trying to say was that we've really been struggling to find any cats around. And I often say, if you're struggling to find an animal or to catch an animal, like when you go fishing, if you want to catch a fish, you need to think like a fish. Now, we've been trying to find these cats. Well, we need to think like them. And in this case, I've acted like one. I've climbed up a tree, tried to get a good view of the entire area. And well, if we don't find any of them, at least you've seen me up a tree. So nonetheless, at least that's entertaining. It's going to be quite difficult getting down, I think. But it's very quiet. Every direction is a little bit empty. We haven't been seeing any tracks along the road. Now, Romit, you've asked a good question. What is the toughest animal, or what has been the toughest animal to track? Romit, that is the exact animal that we're trying to find, a leopard. Now, the reason for that is, okay, generally here in the Sabi Sands, the rangers have sort of understood the leopard's habits, and so they're following up on where these animals have been moving around, and so they find them quite easily in that sense. But generally, if you had to pick up a track of a leopard in the bush and try to follow it, it is the most difficult animal to find. If a leopard doesn't want to be found, generally you won't find him. And that's what happens like in the areas in the Masai Mara, or in areas further south in the Kruger National Park, where those leopards aren't habituated like they are here in the Sabi Sands. And when I say habituated, I mean used to people, used to vehicles. They're very relaxed around them, and that's because of the hard work that has been put in by the guides in this particular area to make them relaxed around the vehicles. Hence why they would be doing like with Tandi's cub, trying to be with that little cub from birth as much as possible, so that when she gets older, she won't have a problem with people walking through the bush or driving up to her, because if a leopard doesn't want to be seen, he won't be. And in her case, she doesn't mind, so we would be able to see her. So I'm going to now try and fall my way down this tree, and from a lovely height like this, it is quite a big fall. But speaking of lovely heights, let's head you on over to Taylor with one of those very tall animals.
Our animals are just coming from everywhere. We've now got a male giraffe that's joined us, and we've got another one, another cow that's on her way in. I have no idea how many giraffe are hiding amongst the trees today, but I think we have the entire population of giraffe in the Sabi Sand at the moment. This is so exciting. Hold on, everybody. This is amazing. Now, come on, Gil. I think they're all going to go feed on the same tree now. They all look like bush willows of sorts. I'm not sure which one from here. Perhaps the large fruited bush willow. The one that tricks James and I, and we think that we're spotting lots of chameleons, but we've just been spotting their fruit. Ah, what are you trying to do, girl? Were you just using him as a scratching post? Maybe not. Maybe. Who knows? Stretching up nice and tall, though, to get all the tasty leaves. Ah, there we go. Now, obviously, it is only 20 to 5 p.m. Central African time at the moment, so Minamu, these giraffe are not going to be sleeping just yet. However, I have seen giraffe feasting at night. I suppose it depends on the day. Normally what happens if it's very, very windy, often giraffe will sit down. You can't really blame them, and try and keep out of the wind, and then they'll sort of ruminate. And I've seen them doing that at night, but typically on very, very windy nights too. They do sit down and rest for a short period, kind of like how horses do. I mean, they don't need to sleep for hours and hours. They just need a couple of hours of rest. Remember, they also don't put their heads down on the ground. So they will be feeding when it's dark. Whether they decide to rest from 6 p.m. for 2 hours to 8 p.m., then they'll probably get up and carry on feeding too. So most of these animals out here constantly feed, not just during the day. Well, some animals, things like squirrels, there's some animals that are typically diurnal and that will go to sleep at night and hide away and only come out when it's light, like squirrels, like baboons and vervet monkeys, for just a couple to name. But giraffe will get on the go. Giraffe, you better be careful crossing this airstrip. What happens if an aeroplane lands? It's going to shave your ossicones. The ossicones are the things on top of its head, its little horns. They're not horns, though. Now, here's an interesting one from Yaju. Obviously, giraffe have got exceptionally long necks, and you're probably wondering how on earth does their blood get all the way to the top of their head. And Yaju, you've asked exactly that. Well, they've got a massive heart. It weighs about 12 kilograms, if I'm not mistaken. It can pump 60 liters of blood per minute. So that's quite exceptional. And that's how they do it. So they're able to pump it all the way up to the top, and then at the base of their brain, which is quite interesting, is they've sort of got spongy sort of muscle filled with lots and lots of blood vessels, so that when they go and drink, that blood doesn't just, you know how if you do a handstand and your blood rushes to your head, that doesn't happen with a giraffe. That blood is sort of spread out quite evenly throughout the brain, so that they don't pass out. So they're able to, of course, their hearts are working really, really hard in order to pump that blood around. But that's beautiful, lovely comparison. Obviously, you can see the females are normally more of a lighter tawny color, and once the males start to reach sexual maturity, they tend to go a lot darker in color. And I think he's big. I mean, he's not the biggest giraffe I've seen. I think there's some other fellas out here who could give him a bit of a run for his money. And some of those giraffe almost black in color. Now what's quite interesting, I don't know if you can see all the oxpeckers dropping off one at a time. They've all stopped to have a dust bath, taking an opportunity, gone, thanks for the ride everybody, thanks for the meal, but now I'm going to do some self-maintenance and roll around in the dust. And that's of course very important, especially when you can't go to the vet and get some, you know, flea repellent or mite repellent, whatever may be living on these birds. So the dust helps with that and helps suffocate all those parasites. But they'll go back to the giraffe that once they're finished here, and if the giraffe have moved on, well, they can fly. You wouldn't have to fly a huge distance, but there's also lots of other mammals for them to sit on. And you'll often see that, especially with the oxpeckers, getting off, having a drink of water when the animals are having a drink of water. Now, Paul, a giraffe's footprint, we'll try and have a look at one before I answer your question about what the structure of it is, but it essentially is an odd-toed ungulate because it has a hoof, so it's like a zebra, almost looks like a very big zebra footprint, if you will. And if I have to be completely descriptive of it, we'll go and find a track now. It looks like somebody has taken an iron that you iron clothes with and put it on the ground. That's what it always reminds me of. But let's find a little track here. Well, not a little track, because fully grown giraffe bull's track's about the size of my shoe, about a size 7. Where's that bull? Let's see where he walked. Do you think these tracks would be easy to find? You know, buffalo. Why can I not see? Oh, there. Okay, we'll do these ones. I'm just gonna get a nice angle. Oh, actually, those ones are quite nice, hey? Let me... Yes, there we go. I'm going to quickly jump out for you. Sorry, everybody, if I get in the way. Okay. That one doesn't look so massive. I'm going to stand on this side, but you can ideally see. Like I said, I don't know if that giraffe bull is quite fully grown. I've seen others that have got more muscle and stuff on him, but I wear size 7 shoes, and it's about a size 41. I think this is the US size. So you can see in comparison. But other giraffe bull feet that I have seen have been the length of my shoe. Now you can kind of see how I say it looks just like an iron. But it's typically a hoof, a ridge in the middle. I can't actually say I've ever seen underneath a giraffe's foot, so I don't know if it looks similar to a horse or a zebra, which typically the hoof would do that more than anything. So I can't remember what that part of the horse, it starts with an E, but I can't remember now. What is that part of the horse's hoof called? See, this is the problem when you know all the horsey things and then you don't talk about them for 6 years, and then you forget. I used to be able to know from Pony Club. You know, you used to have to name all the parts of the animals, all these different types of things, but I cannot remember. You have to get your little brush, hoof pick, and pick all the horse poo and all sorts of other things out before you go riding. I can't remember what those parts are called. Someone's going to tell me now, though, I know, and then Kirsten will let me know. Hashtag Safari Live if you know what I'm talking about. Let's start with an E. I don't know. Anyways, well, that was quite nice. The giraffe have moved into the bush. We might be able to catch him on the other side of the road. Shall we see if we can? Yeah. We've got to do a little bit of a detour, but we're not going to off-road for the giraffe. But we'll zip on around because we haven't seen many giraffe, and I'm sure you'd like to spend as much time with them as possible. Right, we're going to try and relocate those tall creatures. Off you go to Steve to see if he's found a leopard, a wild dog, or perhaps maybe an elephant with a hat.
No pressure, no. I have not found either of the above, but marvellous that Taylor was able to find for you. We have found a bird, though. Let's see if we can get him before he flies off. Oh, there he flies. Oh, actually, better light. Much better light. I know that Dr. Owen is always keen for us to do testiculars. And here we have a rattling testicular. Marvellous. Very easily identified by the noise. They often end it with a rattling sort of sound. It's joined by a second. They're just in the back there. There's actually a couple other birds in there. Can you see, Sands? A little bit right. You got him, eh? No? A little bit right. You can hear the rattling. There's a whole lot of birds jumping in here. A little bird party. See, what the rattling testicular was doing there was more of its alarm call than its actual call. They normally do that cheet cheet and then I can't do it very well with my mouth. It's quite a tricky call to get right with the mouth. Debbie, birds have a numerous amount of calls depending on the species. Some of them it'll be for song and attracting the mate. You can hear it in the background. That choo, 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 choo. Can you hear that? And some will be just a contact call, a little tweep, 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 for example, in the blue waxbill. Some will be able to mimic, and then a lot of birds are able to alarm call, and the alarm call is more of a ch 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 sort of sound. And in the birding world, we call it pshting. It's spelt with a P and a whole lot of F's and SH's, and that is the ch 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 ch. The kind of mimic that I'm doing there is kind of mimic an alarm call, and that's a good way of attracting birds into your area. What that rattling testicular was doing there, I saw a golden-breasted bunting flying. I saw another bird, I think it was a tawny flank prinia. I think he's on top of the tree now there, Sense. There we go, he's gone down. There was a blue waxbill. A whole lot of birds get attracted to that call, and it's possible a snake, it could be a mongoose, something that's threatening the birds' very livelihood or their nesting. And that calling often attracts all sorts of birds. So whenever I go walking, every now and again, if I see a bird just flittering through the undergrowth, I'll do that noise, a ch 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 ch. And it's amazing how many birds actually come out into sort of the visible range that you can see them. It's a great way for identifying bird species as well. It's difficult to identify a bird from its alarm call because they often sound very similar to what I was doing. But it's marvelous that they tend to come and chase us away. It works very well for me in the forests when I'm walking, trying to get birds out, very sort of camouflaged, hidden birds. They always come out and try to play with me, or chase me away, should I say. There is a more relaxed testicular that has not jumped down. It seems like the drama has passed. We're going to continue on. We're slowly heading in towards the northeastern boundary now after checking the entire south and west. And we're now going along sort of the middle towards Buffelshoek Dam and see what's going on over there. And let's go over to Ralph, who this time is sitting down.
I am sitting down, everybody, and the reason why I am doing that is we've found a wonderful little track here. Now, if we have a look over here, this is a very common track, and I'm sure that a lot of you will know what this is. It's quite small for this kind of animal, very rugby ball shaped, or American football shaped, if I could say that, and a little bit of a kick out in the front here. Now, this is the back foot of an elephant, but a very young elephant at that. Now, if we just go a little bit forward, we can actually see this front foot coming in here with also the little drag mark there. So we do know that this animal was moving in this direction. But there's a couple of other things that we can tell from this track as well. Now, the first thing, obviously, we can see it is very small in comparative terms compared to other elephants' track. It's probably about a quarter of the size of a fully grown bull elephant. So it's very small. And I would say probably an elephant in the first 3 years of its life. Now, what you can do with the front foot of an elephant's track, if you take a piece of string, or in this case, a piece of grass, I'm doing my best, it's bending a little bit, but I'm getting a general circumference of the front foot track of an elephant. And so it's pretty much the length of this wonderful piece of finger grass. And if we put that next to my stick, it's a little bit shorter than my stick. Right, now we can throw that piece away because we know now it's pretty much the length of my stick. Okay, if we take 2.5 times the circumference of the front foot of an elephant, we can get its shoulder height. So there's one. Now I'll try my best to keep to the right spot. There's 2. There's my finger again, and a half. So more or less over there. Now we're looking at the shoulder height of an elephant in the first 3 years of its life. And his shoulder is above my head, and so his head will probably be in this region here. So he will be looking over me. Maybe his eyes will be just at about this level, and it's quite scary to think that an elephant in the first 3 years of its life will be pretty much taller than me. Wow, it's something to think of. Now, there's something else that I did just find here. Something for the wonderful people that like herbs. And this here, this beautiful little plant that is down here with the little pink flowers. And this is wild basil. So I often take this, rub it on my hands. If I've got anything bad smelling on my hands, it really is beautiful. Now, speaking of beautiful things, I think Taylor has something beautiful to show you.
We do, but I don't really know what it is. I think it may be a female sandfelt lizard, spotted sandfelt lizard. I don't know, though. And some of you may remember that not so long ago I found a weird-looking lizard on bushwalk. Remember, it was black with white spots on it. And I spoke to Tristan, and he said that it is actually the juvenile spotted sandfelt lizard, if I'm not mistaken. I think he said that it mimics the Anthea beetle, which was really quite cool. Now, this one is quite fat. It doesn't have an orange tail, which is making me think perhaps it is a female. Often females are not quite as sort of brightly colored as males, as we know. But I don't have my reptile book with me, so if some of you know, it would be great to, of course, know. Oh, would it be? Oh, I don't know what it is. I don't think I've seen this one before. I'm actually trying to have a look on the Google machine now. Lizards of Southern Africa. There's a lot to choose from. Or maybe you can come and help me as well. It does have a very scaly tail. I don't know if it's one of the... I don't know if it's... I don't think it's one of the plated lizards. It looks too small. Dale, you said it's got really pretty patterns. It does. I agree with you. There we go. A list of lizards of Southern Africa. Yes. Please give me all the Latin names. That's great, because I know exactly what that means. Let me try another one. Kruger Park. It gives me skinks and vine snakes, but it looks quite fat. VM suggested perhaps it is a female and it is pregnant. Maybe. Or maybe it is just fat because it's eaten lots of things. Lorraine, you said it looks like a baby rock monitor. I suppose it could be, hey, but it's very small. And just those patterns look very much like a sandfelt lizard. They normally have spots and stripes on them like that. I'm just going through, but it could well. Oh, no, it's run away. Where did you go? Let me see if I can encourage it to go back onto the road. Go that way. We want to see you. It's gone. I will never know what it is now. Okay, well, I'm sure you all got wonderful screenshots. and I look forward to seeing them when we get back to camp. Oh yeah, let's go back to the giraffe. I forgot we were actually looking for giraffe for a minute. We saw the lizard. But that was quite cool. Very nice. We'll try and figure out what that was. I'll keep scrolling through the list of lizards. Anyways, let's go to Ralph, who's managed to find himself not some plants or wild basil this time, but an impala.
Well, everyone, we did spot an impala, but we're just going to try and get a little bit closer to him because he's just run off. But now, that's a very good indication. If we had been that distance from an impala with a vehicle, he wouldn't have even bothered about us. But the animals are so evolved to see animals walking on two legs, they know that we're terribly dangerous. So I think he's skittered off there, but let's just see if we can maybe get around the bush here and see him from a different angle. Maybe he's still there. Let's see. Well, no, I think he's really scooted right off. So what we're going to do, we're just going to continue walking up the road. Why I said we're walking up the road is because I'm looking for tracks. That's what I love doing, and the tracks on a road are particularly special because it's a lovely platform for you to see, especially where there hasn't been vehicles driving, because it makes this lovely flat sort of clean slate, nice piece of paper, the newspaper of the bush as we call it, and so we can nicely see the tracks. And what the animals do is they often walk on the road as well, because why would you waste your energy walking through the thickets when you have this lovely open track? Now we've got a couple of little tracks over here next to the water hole, as you generally do find. Animals will come down to drink. The first one we've got over there, but I want to look at this in here. This is one of our usual customers that you'd find in a nice mud wallow like this. If we look here at this track, it's nice and clear. This is the front of the track there, and it's very blunt. It's almost quite flat. And towards the back, it's also quite flat. So it's quite boxy, and very much the size of the animal that we just saw, an impala, very much the size of his track. But this is a warthog track. So he's obviously come down here, had a drink, and
Sorry about that, folks. Ralph and his warthog track obviously did not want to be seen. We stopped at this termite mound, and there's a hole there, and Sandra saw a lizard scurrying back inside, and I don't think he wants to be seen either. Let me just roll back an inch for you so you don't get the branch in the way. Hole created by who knows what, but in a really nice termite mound, enormous termite mound in fact. And as we know, there are many, many, many species that like to live in these termite mounds. Most of the work has been done. All you need to do is break a little bit of the outer crust, and once you're inside, there are numerous tunnels and antechambers and places to hide and protect your eggs or your babies or whatever it is that you might have. The time sharing between certain organisms, they move in and out of termite mounds depending on obviously who they are and what time of day it might be. Warthogs go in at night, and some other animals might swap over with them by day. Whether that really happens or not is debatable, but we do know that there could be all sorts of things hiding in there. Well, it seems like we're going to move off from our termite mound. Let's go to Taylor for an update.
Right, putting my jerseys on. One final item. Got to do the scarf, like so. I suppose there's many different ways you can wear a scarf. Hey, you do this. This is the better way. Do the wrap around like that. It's quite nice. And then you've got the little tassels in front. We should ask Brent. Yes, Kirsten, I agree. Brent is the expert at wearing scarves. Or I don't know. Now, you see, this is why I only do it one way, because I'll choke myself otherwise. And also I pull my mic cable out of my hat, so just clip that back in. So I just do it like this. so much easier, so comfortable, no choking involved. Right, we are going to look for leopards. Our giraffe have disappeared into a vacuum somewhere in the middle. They just didn't come out of that block. Perhaps they found a tasty tree to feast upon. They don't want to come out. Now, James has suggested that it is perhaps a common rough-scaled lizard that we were looking at. Maybe. I don't know. I couldn't actually find any more lizards on my phone. But the Google machine is hopeless on your mobile device. So I'll go back and I'll look at my reptile book tonight, and then I shall let you know on Twitter what it actually was. Please send those screenshots through. Hashtag Safari Live. And then I'll try and identify it. I don't know if I've seen that one. It wasn't big. Maybe about that big. Really small. And I don't know if it quite could have been a baby rock monitor. Don't think so. I think it was just too small to be a rock monitor. And they're normally a little bit more colourful than that. Right, so to the eastern corner we will go to have a quick scratch around before the sun sets for Kuchava. And then we will head back down towards Chitwa Dam to have a little look at the hippos once they're active, and maybe a Tengana. Right, but speaking of water, it seems as though Ralph has found himself upon some pans.
Thanks, Taylor. And yes, everybody, we're still next to a couple of little water points. And as I was speaking about this morning, these could probably have been started by a little bit of a bird dust bath and then succeeded by a warthog wallowing in it, maybe then a buffalo, and then landing up being maybe an elephant or so, making it bigger and bigger as it goes along. But here's a very good indication along the tree here. Lots of mud on this tree that shows that there's definitely been elephants wallowing in this mud and spraying it all over them and then coming and rubbing it off on the tree here. So something else now that I do want to show you, I have said it before when I was here in Djuma with you. The basics of tracking. What are the three kinds of foot structure? We talk of the primates, which are plantigrade. They put their whole hand on the ground. Which animals are those? The baboons, the monkeys, and the humans. Then we go on to the second group, which is digitigrade. Which animals are these? These are the cat-like animals, the dog-like animals, the animals that walk on their fingers. Now I'm talking in terms of their foot structure. So we get plantigrade, walking on the whole foot, digitigrade, walking on the fingers. What's the last one? Unguligrade, walking right on the tips of their toes. And that's all the antelope, all the hooved animals. And we've got a number of different tracks around in this particular area here. And if Davy just follows me over here, we've got lots of little holes in the ground here. And those coming towards a water hole. It's nice and soft. It would have been after a bit of rain. Now these little tracks here, you can see there's two toes, but walking right on the tips of the toes, rather sharp. This is that of a duiker. Okay, and if we just come a little bit back here, Davy, you can actually see that this animal, it walks with a direct register. That's what we call when your back feet step right into your front feet. And we can see it quite clearly here, although it hasn't done it perfectly. There's the back foot, which is stepped perfectly on the front foot, but slightly back. So normally when he walks around at a normal pace, he will walk perfectly into from the back foot into the front foot. In this case, he's coming down to water, so he's slowing down. He's not walking at the normal pace that he would. Now, so that's an unguligrade animal. Over here, we've got the animal that we were just talking about a little bit earlier, the elephant, who's our suspect who's put the mud on the tree there as well. He's digitigrade, believe it or not. He walks on the fingers. And the reason I say that is because I've seen a couple of elephant carcasses, and the information that we've studied up on when we were learning to be guides was that elephants walk on the whole foot. And after looking at carcasses, I believe that that is incorrect. Elephants walk on the fingers with the heel raised. So they are digitigrade, like that of our likely customer over here, and the animal that I like to follow around, Mr. Hyena. So you can see with him, he's got the back pad there with 1, 2, 3, 4 toes and all those lovely claws in the front, and this being that of a spotted hyena. It's always interesting to come down next to a water point because you will see a plethora of different tracks and signs of different animals. There's some lovely trees here as well, so you'll also see birds coming in to feed on the berries of the guarri trees, and we've got some berries over there. And that's actually quite interesting too, because the magic guarri was not only used to divine water, as the Latin name suggests, Euclea divinorum, and how they would do that, they would actually break a V branch and they would walk, but it's quite a difficult thing to do. It's quite I can't say scientific because they think that it's not really scientific at all, but you've got to make a connection between yourself, the sky and the ground, and they can actually, it's been proven that they can find water in the ground where this stick points down, and they would dig there and then find water. But these berries have got a very a strong oil in them that a lot of the people would use it to oil their guns, and they would also use it as a very strong dye because the colouring in there is very purple. So a number of uses of this tree. They also call it the toothbrush tree because if you run out of toothbrushes or you leave yours at home, as I have done when I've been in the bush, I forgot mine at home, you can break a branch and just fray up one of the little branches, and you can use that to pick out the things in your teeth. And if you use that in conjunction with the leadwood ash from the fire, which is like a whitewash, well, you've got the perfect teeth cleaning equipment. So wonderful. Nice little stop here next to the water. I think we're going to continue on and see if we can find some more tracks. And while we do that, let's head you on over to Taylor, who is on the move.
We're on the move looking for Kruger still. We've been discussing how dark it's got tonight. It's only just after 5 p.m. and I'm going to try and find a gap because I think we're actually going to get a nice sunset, funny enough. Nope. That tricked us. It opened up here, but it didn't open up a little bit further away. There's a tiny gap. Just a little one, but not much. As you can see, it's very dense in here, filled with lots and lots of bush willows. But the sun is actually just about to pop out from behind the clouds, where we're going to get beautiful golden light. So it's kind of tricked us this afternoon. Hashtag got tricked, because I thought we weren't going to have much of a sunset at all this evening. But look at that. Here it comes. Look how golden those clouds are. Silver lining for who when you can have a golden one? It is so beautiful, which is what Kirsten has just described it as, in that exact, basically in that exact way. How much longer, VM, do you think before the sun actually pops out? 75 seconds. 35 seconds. Oh, can I put the timer on? Okay, well, it'll be less now. It'll be, oh, you know, technology is just so wonderful. Doesn't frustrate me at all. No, I didn't ask for 1 second. It's being silly. I can't get the timer to stop, please. Please stop making that noise. Sorry, I'm hopeless. We'll do stopwatch. You know what? It's about 20 seconds, Evium. All time 20 seconds. I think about 30 seconds time. We're going to see the sun. We're on 10 seconds now. 10 seconds. I sound like I'm one of the directors doing a countdown. Here it comes. I was trying to be dramatic there and be very quiet. We're now on 35 seconds and the sun has still not appeared. Perhaps, VM, we should have gone into the minutes. But either way, find Kruger. We're not really going to be able to find her or spend too much time with her, that is, because of course it's getting dark. We've just discussed that. Right. Well, I'll show you the sun when it decides to pop out. And I think we're going to Steve now at some dam.
We are at Buffelshoek Dam indeed, and the sun has disappeared behind the clouds, and we thought we'd come up here for an investigation, or should I say a telling of the numbers of Egyptian goose goslings that are still there. And I counted 8, but as we were waiting to show them to you on TV, we have got this big male giraffe who's coming down to drink, and could be marvelous. Watching giraffe go through that laborious process of getting their head all the way down to the water's edge to drink is one of the mysteries of the animal kingdom, how the neck evolved to be so long to enable them to feed so high, to outcompete all other herbivores. It made for a very difficult ability to drink. Those of you who've seen giraffe drinking before, hopefully we will see it now as he just makes some space with a bit of a toilet stop. And hopefully we'll see it soon, but it is quite something to behold. Taylor was talking to you earlier about how giraffe pump blood up to their head, and now there comes 2 parts to that story. One is getting the blood up there, and another one is when the head goes below the heart, is keeping the blood from spilling into the back of the brain and flooding it. Is he going to drink, or is he just playing with us? Interesting. It's possible that he's going to have a little look around there, see if there's any predators watching him come to drink. Dale, what animals don't need to drink? I'm thinking now, an animal like a steenbok, we would regard it anaerobic as water independent because they get all their moisture from the vegetation they eat, but it doesn't mean that they don't go and drink. It means that they can survive without it. Giraffe can go a good day or 2 without drinking because they get a lot of it from the vegetation as well. But we don't have too many other specialists that I can think of out here that don't need water. Animals will drink if it's available, but obviously the adaptation to acquire it from the vegetation is quite unique and quite a good ability to have in areas of drought and of very dry, arid conditions. But water is the currency of life, and all other animals, as far as I'm aware, will need to drink. Even the oxpeckers, who get most of their moisture from the blood in the ticks they eat, they will still come down and drink because the water's available. Well, that was a bit of an anticlimax that he hasn't gone and drunk. Maybe he's going to come down to this other patch over here. A little bit more open there for him. Does he know that the last time I saw the nkuhumas here, they were lying around that spot? Or maybe he knows that very, very well. It's a very dangerous time for animals, especially on his own. Cenac giraffe are very vulnerable when they drink. I mean, first of all, he's on his own. He can't see what's going around him. So he needs to make sure there's nothing lurking in the shadows or in the long grass in the bushes, because he's got to move up to the water's edge. He's then got the water in front of him. And he spreads his legs out and he drops his head really low down towards the water. And it makes it very easy for something to jump on them, because that is the hard part about pulling a giraffe down, is getting the head down. But if the head is already down, the balance is off. Very easy to pull. But what I was going to say before is when giraffe take their head down below their heart, they have a mechanism in the back of the brain, or the capillaries coming into the brain, that basically slow down, or what I should say, they go from a larger pipe into many smaller sort of ventricles coming from the heart all the way back into the brain. They oxygenate it from the lungs, and that network goes from a really large chamber into a whole lot of small network of veins, which slow down and decrease the pressure of the blood moving through, almost working like a sponge. It slows down the movement of the blood. Otherwise the giraffe would get an enormous head rush, and when he stands up again, the blood would also rush back down again. So the same is true. It also moves back out of the brain in a similar fashion, so they don't get head rushes, because as we know, giraffe have got, or as we should know, giraffe have got the highest blood pressure out of any mammal, because they need to pump that blood all the way around their body, oxygenated blood all the way up to the head, which is a really interesting process to do with their heart. I think Taylor might have told you about it, how the exit points of the heart, the left chamber The wall is very, very thick with a very small capacity, and so small amounts of blood come in, but with an enormous muscle wall which pump the blood all the way up to the heart. And it is a very, very good adaptation that the giraffe have got. And with every inch of the neck, you get an extra centimeter or so in the wall of the heart. So Ashley, you say there's a wound on the neck. Let's have a closer look. Okay, so what we get, and on the giraffe there you can clearly see that there's an oxpecker or two, and they like to feed on ticks, as we know, and they like to feed on the blood. And if giraffe get a bit of an injury or a wound, the oxpeckers are known to sort of keep that wound open. And they're also known to spread a sort of virus between giraffe. It's kind of like a skin herpes kind of virus, called papilloma virus, which moves between giraffe and is transferred by oxpeckers in the movement of blood. But we are going to just sit here and watch the process of the giraffe going down to drink. He's willing the water to come closer to his face. Is there a crocodile in there? He's not sure. Also, you've got to bear in mind the giraffe needs to have some sure footing. If he slips now, it could be tragic. A giraffe falling and hitting their head is a common cause of death. If they fall and that neck whips down and they smack their head, it can lead to all sorts of injuries, and we know that hitting our heads on the floor is not ideal. And it's also ungainly for them to get up again. Here we go, round 2. Looking for a nice flat spot where the soil is not too muddy. He's going to show us the front on, which is going to be marvelous if we get to see it. You could definitely tell he was interested in drinking. There we go. He's coming in for another approach. He shakes off another oxpecker from his ear. He wants it. I wonder if anyone could offer him a straw. We got some hosepipe on the back there, Sands. Straws are very bad unless they're made out of cellulose and are reusable or biodegradable, or you can eat them afterwards, then that's fine. Candy straws are fine because then you eat them. You can see it's a male giraffe by those ossicones on the top of the head. They're balding on the top, and they're also very, very thick. The females are very sort of gentle and narrow on top. And here he goes again. Let's watch the legs part. He's got to spread those front legs out very, very wide to get his body low enough to be able to reach the water. He's standing a good 5.5 meters above ground, which is enormous. If you think about it, we only come up to his shoulder there, up to his leg. Not quite sure. Monique, when you talk about water-dwelling animals, do they need to drink? Well, I think fish just sort of osmoregulate themselves and water goes in. Frogs, water goes in through their skin, mainly through their belly. But a lot of the animals, like hippos, for example, they will drink. They will drink while they're in the water, but it requires not too much effort for them, and they don't have to do what this guy's doing now. You can see it's more of a dance than anything else, and he'll finally find the right spot. Don't give up now, buddy. You're so close. This is marvelous watching him attempt. So Sinak, it's definitely, he is vulnerable. You can see by his actions, he's very, very careful and cautious about doing this. He needs to make sure that the wind is right, because if the wind is wrong and maybe a predator is able to sneak up on him, then he could potentially get caught between the water and any potential escape route. There's another little look there before. Matt, giraffe have got very, very strong legs. If we had to cut open a giraffe leg, there's no marrow inside. It's completely ossified inside. So the giraffe's legs are solid bone. So I don't think they break them very easily. But in saying that, break it as easily as other. They need to have very, very strong legs to support their weight and to keep them as tall as they are. And so the legs are completely ossified inside. They don't have the same bone marrow sort of running through that we do. I don't know exactly how they're able to move blood and things through, but it's obviously a much smaller channel within the leg, moving blood from the body down into the feet, with very tight stockings on the sides of the legs, which prevent the blood from pooling in the lower extremities. The skin is very, very tight, and those of you who've flown on an aeroplane will know that if you wear tight socks on your legs, you prevent your legs from swelling or your ankles from swelling in a long flight. And it's something that astronomers have been doing, not astronomers, astronauts have been doing for quite some time, wearing very tight sort of spandex pants to keep the blood from shrinking or going down into the lower parts of the legs. I think he's going into round 3. Is he going to? The oxpeckers keep annoying him. You can see he's licking his lips with anticipation. Here we go. No. Okay, I'm just going to keep quiet for a little while. Maybe it's my voice he's not liking. I mean, surely he's old enough to know that the water's not going to fly up into his mouth. Seems to be willing it. Okay, well, we're going to wait here with this guy and see if he finally drinks. But while we do, let's go over to Taylor with a small antelope.
One that I haven't put on screen for a very long time, which is a bushbuck. You may also be able to hear the go-away birds alarming above me. As we drove down behind the dam, that's why we came down here. But as those birds alarm, I'm going to wait for them to alarm once more before I start talking. This bushbuck doesn't seem to be responding too well. Now you may notice she also seems to have a bit of a swollen eye on the left. I don't know what she's done. Maybe she's walked into a branch and poked it. Perhaps she's escaped the claws of a leopard. We will never know what happened to her. And the fact that she's not responding, yes, when she stands up, you see she has a little look around. Now that's the first time since we've been here for the last few minutes that she's done that. Quickly turned her head around. But we think it was because there was an owl that flew around. I saw a barn owl fly out, and I think that may have been what the go-away birds were alarming at, but we will go and check around. See, now she's focused behind her, and that's not the direction that the go-away birds were looking in. So initially I thought that maybe they were alarming for a raptor of sorts because of the fact that this bushbuck is not alarming. And we know that the animals will speak the same language, but a bushbuck is not going to alarm or react much to an alarm call for a bird of prey. And they've all got different types of alarm calls. Oh, a little bit nervous, spring in her step, leaping straight out of that wetland. And girl. So even with a not 100% eye, you can see it's definitely giving her some trouble. And weeping. Oh, you see the squirrels are alarming now too. Going straight back in. Paula, she did step quite delicately, didn't she? She was indeed. I'm just turning around, sorry, to make sure that the leopard doesn't walk out and behind us. That would be embarrassing, wouldn't it? Now she's a bit more interested that the squirrels have also started alarming. We'll have to go up and investigate, I think. We'll do that in a minute. But she's using all her senses. Her hearing, her sense of smell. And then, of course, well, she's only got really one eye. So perhaps her ears and her sense of smell will be working overtime now to try and compensate. It's also quite nice to see her in that marshy area. The squirrel. Amazing how deathly quiet it is in between the alarm calls. Quite scary. Eerie, while the insects all chiming in. A different kind of chorus going on at the moment, not just one of birds. Insects, the go-away birds, and then the squirrels. Crested francolin also calling. Very cool. Karen, I agree with you. I also think this is a good spot for an ambush. Lots of tall grasses here, some reeds. Looks like a bit of papyrus, lots of sedges, lots of tambuti. Perfect spot and perfect habitat for a leopard and also for a bushbuck. So we're just hoping. Okay, I think what we're going to do, Vim, is I think we should go out and all the way around and check that other road. What do you think? Just in case. Because imagine there's a leopard just walking above us on the road and we can't get to it. We're going to have to go all the way out. Right. Well, interesting prospects. Okay, we're going to zip around up there to see what we can find. Let's go back to Steve with a giraffe that doesn't know if it wants to drink.
The giraffe is very undecided of what to drink. He's turned around after having a toilet stop and is now feeding with his face buried deep in a buffalo thorn. And I find it amazing they are able to stick their face into the buffalo thorn and use their tongue to rip off those leaves, because every time I try and grab a leaf or two, I often get poked in the hand. And that is using hands, which I think are quite sort of efficient in moving between, and sort of our opposable thumbs and all that allows us to grab and do things, but nowhere near as efficient as the giraffe with their very tough, leathery tongue. Able to feed on very sharp vegetation. You can see the height of it there. No comparison between any other animal. Minamu, the reason for the dark tongue is because, and that's a theory, first for the melanin, to protect the tongue against the thorns, as I was saying now. When what he's going to use his tongue, he's just ripping off the leaves off of the branches that are covered in thorns. Look at that. And his lips as well. And so he's able to protect the tongue because the melanin adds strength to the tongue. And there's also a theory that because they feed for so long, their tongue is out the mouth, that there's a potential to get a little bit of sunburn on the tongue. So by having it very dark, it eliminates that ability. I can't imagine what a sunburned tongue must feel like. Biding his time, he's going to smell out the area a little bit longer before turning around and drinking. We thought he was going to have a go. He nearly did. He was willing the water again into his mouth. Charla, I have no idea if giraffes can swim, but I mean, I assume they can. All mammals seem to be able to swim. Apart from us who have to learn how to swim, I don't think any other mammal needs to learn. If you just throw a mammal in the water, they tend to have some form of doggy paddle that gets them out the other side. I've never seen it. I'd love to see a giraffe swimming. Well, it looks like our giraffe is not interested in swimming or drinking. Let's go over to Taylor with an animal in the water.
Look at them, they're comparing the size of their mouths. It's obviously mom and calf having a grand old time. Mom just tolerating the youngster, which is quite nice to see, but very playful. Nothing savage or vicious here. This is all just love. Look at the little tongue coming out. That's so cool. I can't say I've seen a hippo's tongue very often. And this is what two hippo bulls would do with one another, they'd size each other up. But we're not going to stay here long because... Any of those guinea fowl now, VM?
Yes.
We need all the vehicles to drive on Chitwa today because I think we're going to find a leopard too, but we'll enjoy this for just a couple more minutes and then I'm going to race around. The fact that the guinea fowl are now shouting makes me think otherwise. What I was going to say is that hippo bulls normally size one another up like this. It looks like mom's actually enticing the little one to play, encouraging it. Every time we come to this dam, we have the most incredible hippo sightings. I hope everybody else gets similar sightings. Oh, we've got those other two small ones chasing one another around too. Oh, here comes a chase. This is so funny because they paw piss a lot here. Bite you on the bottom. Oh, this is cool. It's another shallow bank diving down into the deeps again like submarines. Oh, look at that one. Quick on the turn. Imagine this in slow-mo, VM. It's a bit dark now. The light's not really good for slow-mo. But very funny. This is the most playful I've seen them be for a very long time. Careful, little one. You might lose your head to Mom. She could put your whole head in her mouth. Joy, this is so funny. It is cool. Hey, look how I'm so lucky to get these amazing sightings. Be gentle now. No need to be ugly. Cecilian, I'll let you know if they have bad breath the day that I'm brave enough to stick my head close enough to a hippo. Maybe if I give a hippo a kiss one day. That might be the last thing that I'll do. So I'll shout, Cecilia, they don't. And then I'll just leave you hanging and then you'll never know the answer. Talk about jeopardy.